we're actually putting the whole stream of life at risk. What are they? Human, animal, plant, and environmental health is being put up for experimentation. The cry protein A utilized in the modification of beans is poisonous to the Muraka pest. That is why it's able to withstand it. And the metabolites, the breakdown metabolites of this protein is carried over to humans who consume these beans, because cry proteins has been recovered from cord blood, cord and fetal blood. And so that is to show that the metabolites are retained within the system. That's speaking to human health. When you harvest off the beans, the stalk is left in the field, and that will lead to gene dispersal within the environment. And the stalk is also fed to animals. And so you can understand why I did say that genetic modification of our traditional food in Africa is actually an attack on the whole stream of life in Africa, particularly when they are not driven by African scientists. I do not see sincerity of purpose in the entire intervention. My worry is that two major staple crops are gone down and already overtaken in Nigeria, and they are asking for Ghana, they are asking for other adjoining countries. Let me say this. Before now, beans from Nigeria was in high demand in Europe. When we started our unbridled use of chemicals and eventually had gone the way of BT beans, today you cannot export Nigeria-grown beans to any part of Europe. Now, you can see the huge loss. Nobody will shed light on the economic impact of this somersault policy. So the point needs to be made clearly that as Africans, particularly the political class, it's time to begin to interrogate all these intervention technologies that are coming into the country that are not carrying our people along, particularly when we know that in country, we do not have capacity in regard to infrastructure and facility for such experimentation. No empirical evidence has been generated, because for you to say that these things do not cause harm, like Nemo said, there must be a cross-sectional study of the people who have consumed them. My worry is that most of these approvals are done in African countries and in Nigeria based on dossier submissions made by the biotech companies. And so our professors who are said to be members of the panel do not have hands-on experience with the product before they go ahead to approve them. No thorough risk assessment go into the approval process. It is merely a review of the risk assessments as submitted by the biotech company.
Indeed, I mean, we have been served poison as food on our platter, and these people, they know exactly what they are doing. So, Dr. Christoph, please, can you tell us what you've discovered from your research?
The data as given to the authorities in Nigeria seem to be indicate instability of the gene expression and a high high concentration of the BT toxin in certain parts of the plants. So we think further data would have been needed to really find out how much BT protein is being produced in the plant during the vegetation. And this would be then the basis for next step in risk assessment. And this data, as far as we can see, were not provided to the Nigerian authorities. At least we did not have access to it. GM Cowpea are known to produce their own proteins, which to some extent protect also GM cowpeas against insects. And these are called protease inhibitors or the proteins, and especially the protease inhibitors are proteins which are meant to stop or delay degradation of proteins being produced by the plant. And in this case, there's a synergy between the plant proteases inhibitor and the Bt toxin, which in short causes the Bt toxin being much more toxic if produced in the plant compared to the Bt toxins as naturally produced in the bacteria. And this higher toxicity was not taken into account by the applicant in the data as forwarded to the Nigerian authorities. So we think it was underestimated, the toxicity of the plants as introduced into the environment for non-target organisms, for protected species, for soil organisms, and also if the Bt cowpeas are taken up via food chain by humans, the toxicity of the Bt toxin as produced is underestimated. And this would need much more detailed risk assessment before allowing the Bt cowpeas to be used for agricultural production. So data were missing, and some other data were showing that there is a wrong hypothesis in the beginning of the risk assessment. And this leads us to the conclusion that this risk assessment is not sufficient, should be, the cultivation should not be allowed on the basis of the data as provided, and much more data would be needed to come to a reliable conclusion. And finally, we also found out that the risk for gene flow of the plants going to regional varieties or wild relatives of the cowpeas in Nigeria was underestimated. Nigeria has one of the most valuable gene collections, seed collections for cowpeas. It's the biggest in the world. It's one of the countries of origin. So of course, gene flow from the transgenic plants to the natural gene pool has to be prevented. But the data as provided by the applicant to the Nigerian authorities did not properly introduce the risk. It says there is a very low risk for outcross, but it's not really true, because, for example, bumblebees are also transferring the pollen over larger distances, also to wild species, to wild populations, and therefore also the risk for gene flow, for contamination of the natural gene pool and the traditional varieties is systematically underestimated. And this is a long-term risk for Nigeria and Western African countries, because as soon as the gene pool is contaminated and there is the transgenes are inherited, these contaminated plants might become invasive and override the natural populations and replace them. And this would mean major and long-term, really not in any way determined risks for the environment and for the consumers and for food security and food safety of the continent, of the African continent. So this in result, I think, raises the flag. The cultivation, as far as we can see from the data, the cultivation of these cowpeas in Nigeria should not be allowed, should be discontinued. And much more data would be needed. And there are really high risk for the environment and also to some extent to the consumers. And this really has to be properly assessed before any conclusions can be taken on the safety, and any political decisions can be taken whether these plants get grown in Africa or not.
Thank you so much. I mean, I don't know if our government folks are here. I'm sure if they are not here, their agents are here. I hope you're here and go and learn to do what is right. I've seen somebody write in the chat that we were supposed to invite our agency so that they come and give us their viewpoint. Their viewpoint is dump Nigeria with GMOs, dump Africa with they're not listening to us. already when we talk to them, they call us terrorists. So then we know already what their viewpoint is. So we want people who are here, who are their spies here, please take this word to them, that the real scientists of the people are saying this is a bad thing to do. Retrace your footsteps and do the right thing.